All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the May School Employer Advisory Committee meeting here at CalPERS. And your eyes are not deceiving you. This is the CalPERS version. Will come first this month or this quarter. It allows us a little bit of an opportunity here to hopefully save you some time. Typically, the CalSTRS meeting goes a little quicker, and you don't have to wait around until the CalPERS version begins in the afternoon. So we'll experiment with this, and I think it'll work out pretty well for you and get you on the road and back home a little bit more timely than maybe you have in the past. So also, to those joining us via the webcast, welcome to you as well, and thank you for joining us. My name is Kelly Fox. I'm the division chief here with Stakeholder Relations, so thank you all for being here. I'll be the facilitator for this session today. This is our second of the 4 SEAC meetings this year, and all of these this year will be here at CalPERS, and hopefully in this room or somewhere close by anyway, maybe closer to the coffee next time. So if this is your first time joining us, we're happy to have you attend the meeting. You'll hear the latest updates on services, programs, and policies related to your district's work in affiliation with CalPERS. So just a few housekeeping notes. Those of you that are here in person, you've picked up one of the gray packets. Try to keep those at 1 per person. Looks like I think we have enough to go around. And we just have the limited number that we have here with us today. Those materials are also online if you'd like extra copies later. And if you have not checked in yet, make sure that you get checked in and signed in before you leave this afternoon or later today. All right, as I mentioned earlier, we're being joined via video conference by many of your colleagues across the state. When we come to the Q&A portion after each topic discussion, please be sure to wait for the microphone before asking your question. Otherwise, those on the webcast won't be able to hear your questions and will hear answers to questions that are unknown to them. So I'm joined here by my 2 colleagues in Stakeholder Relations, Josh Robinson and Renee Figueroa. They'll be bringing the mics directly to you when we have our Q&A portion. Now, for those of you on the webcast, if you have any questions during any of the presentations today, you can email us at the SEAC website, or excuse me, mailbox. That's CalPERS_SEAC at calpers.gov, or excuse me, .ca.gov. All right, let's go to the agenda. And the first topic is a real quick update on our ALM process. And I'll be taking that one on. So we have to wait just a few minutes here so we get the webcast gets to see the slides as well. All right, so those of you that have been a few of these meetings, the ALM process, our asset liability management process, has been ongoing and recently completed and authorized by the Board of Governance here, the Board of Administration at CalPERS. So you won't see any significant changes, but what you have probably noticed over the course of the last few months anyway is how this process has, in our opinion, kind of created a more stable foundation for the CalPERS fund. We've got our assets in line. The liabilities, as most of you know, continue to grow and outstrip most times the assets. But with our asset liability management process, with the lowering of the discount rate, our assets are now lined up more closely with our liabilities. And so to continue to manage that process, we don't see any significant changes coming up in the near future other than just trying to keep up with the rate of liability growth that we're seeing in all of our plans, schools, public agencies, and the state employer. So the good news is our funded status is now up to about 71%. You'll note that this is up from about 64% at the lowest point, but we were in the last year at about 68% funded. Now, that funding level is just a snapshot in time, but it is a measure of the health of a pension plan, and the lower the funded ratio, the less healthy it is. Our goal to be in a healthier status is to try to get to 90% at some point. That's where we feel is, in the green, anywhere between 90 to about 105%. And I say up to 105% because once we get above 105% funded, the pressures are a little different. And as we noted historically, when the assets are above 105%, there's a lot more pressure either to reduce the contributions or conversely to add to the benefit structure, which we experienced almost 20 years ago now. So the cash flows are improving. And the current process now for our asset liability management is to continue to monitor our assets and liabilities as well. We're going to continue to work on our affiliate funds. Those funds are, if I can go to my notes here, the affiliate funds, the legislators' retirement system, Judges 1, Judges 2, and the CERPT plan, the California Employees Retirement Benefit Trust. So those are the next process of working through the asset allocation on those affiliate funds. Research some of the delegations of policies, procedures, and determine the roles and responsibilities of our governance. And then just kind of schedule our agenda items all the way up through June of 2018 on the affiliate funds. Everything else should be pretty well smoothed over and ready to go as we move forward. So that's kind of just an ALM update. You know that we went through a long process. And every 4 years, we monitor or go through our ALM process. And then every 2 years, we have a check-in to make sure that a lot of our assumptions and our predictions have been following what we thought they would be. And as you probably have heard a number of times from our actuarial office, they are just predictions and they're never correct, but they're always try to be as close as they can. And that's the goal of our actuarial office. They're our real rock stars when it comes to how we go through our process here at CalPERS for our funding. So are there any questions anyone has regarding the ALM process and our continued efforts there? All right. Well, thank you. And at this point, while we wait for the slides to go forward, I will invite Ms. Andrea Peters up here from our legislative team, and she'll give us a legislative update.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Andrea Peters, and I am with the Legislative Affairs Division here at CalPERS. I am going to, can't hear you. Okay, perfect. Let me try this again. Good morning, everyone. My name is Andrea Peters, and I am with the Legislative Affairs Division here at CalPERS. I'm going to provide you guys a quick update on what has happened over the last month in regards to legislation. So the first bill that I'm going to talk about is going to be Assembly Bill 3245, which is CalPERS, our annual housekeeping bill. This bill is clarifying and technical in nature. This bill has, as of last week, passed out of the Assembly and is now in the Senate, waiting to be referred to a policy committee. The second bill that I'm going to speak to is Assembly Bill 2196. This is regarding discontinuing installment payments into retirement. This bill is being heard as we speak right now in the Assembly Appropriations Committee. This bill is on consent, and we expect it to get out of the committee this morning and head over to the floor probably starting next week. The next bill that I'm going to speak to is going to be Senate Bill 1031, which is Senator Morlock's bill. This one is regarding cost of living adjustments for new members upon retirement. And then also at the same time, Senate Bill 1033. This is regarding reciprocity, the transfer of actuarial liabilities between employers. Both of these bills were heard last month in committee, and they both failed enough passage out of these committees. So they will be considered dead for the remainder of the legislative year. Another bill that we've been watching is Senate Bill 1149 by Senator Glazer. This bill is regarding providing new members the opportunity to opt into a defined contribution program. This bill was also heard in committee last month, and it did fail passage. So we do not expect this bill to come back this legislative cycle. The last bill that I'm going to speak to is going to be Senate Bill 1413. This bill creates a 115 trust to allow public employers to pre-fund their pension obligations. This bill will be heard in the Senate Appropriations Committee on Monday, and CalPERS expects to take this bill to the CalPERS board next month. Do we have any questions? Okay.
Just hold on there for the microphones.
Okay.
Teresa Cooper, Stanislaus County. I missed a couple of those bill numbers.
Okay.
So, but I do have a question on the first one you talked about. You're just letting us know that you have the housekeeping bill 3245. We'd like to know what is in that housekeeping bill.
So the housekeeping bill is a technical clarifying bill. The only provisions that we have in the housekeeping bill this year are updates to the government code, so get education code numbers and whatnot. They're outdated education code numbers. And then the other one is just to add a drop preposition. So it is truly technical and clarifying in nature.
Okay. Housekeeping bills at times have items in there that do affect employers. So that's why we ask what is in these bills, so we can discuss and ask questions ahead of time and prepare for those changes if they pass.
Yes.
Okay.
So in my understanding, and maybe it wasn't said last month, the bill was amended. So originally there were some provisions that were a little bit more policy related in nature. Those were amended out of the bill. So as of this month, the update, those provisions had been removed last month. So this month, it's technical and clarifying.
Okay.
So there is nothing that would be considered to be policy related. We're just updating an education code that had been amended years ago in the education code. It was renumbered, and it just didn't get updated in the government code. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that gets updated. And then there was another amendment in the bill regarding a drop preposition. The word to was not in there, and so we wanted to go ahead and just do a little bit of cleanup on that bill.
Thank you. Can you talk a little bit more on 2196?
So 2196 is the discontinuation of installment payments into retirement. This bill allows so there's three provisions within, or larger provisions within the bill. The first one is going to allow new members, as of January 1st of 2019, to have an additional, or not an additional, they're going to have an election either to pay the lump sum upon retirement or to take the actuarial equivalent reduction upon retirement. So they'll have those two options. Existing law allows you to do either a lump sum payment or do installment payments into retirement. The actuarial equivalent will allow members to extend that over their lifetime as opposed to the current 15 years that you're allowed to pay off these lumps or these service credit purchases. So instead of, let's say that you were to elect at 50, you would have 15 years to pay off that service credit purchase. In the future, let's say that you elect at 50, we would use what we call an actuarial equivalent, or reduction by the actuarial equivalent, and that would go over what we would expect to be the lifespan of the member. So as opposed, you would continue to pay it for your life, but we would do it over the life expectancy. So if you elect at 50, we would project that out to, let's say the mortality table would say 85. So the installment payment would be lower for the member. Does that make sense? It's a little bit of a complicated bill, and if you have specific questions on it, I can go ahead and talk with you offline, but that's overall the general concept that we're trying to put in place. What it will do, so this is for new elections as of January 1st, 2019. For existing members, as of January 1st, 2019, we would allow that to be an option for existing elections that we have in place upon retirement. So this is all happening upon retirement.
So this has nothing to do with the one where they have to apply for purchases and have that taken care of before their retirement? Because didn't that change?
It did.
Recently?
Originally, we were saying that you had to, upon retirement, either do the lump sum or take a reduction in your benefit. What the AER will do is we will just allow that benefit to stretch out through your lifetime. So CalPERS will not have a loss, which is what we were experiencing beforehand.
Right, so I'm just, I think I'm confusing this with the one that passed last year that said you had to have it purchased by the time you retire. They had to pay it off if it wasn't.
So that was what had gone to the board earlier this year. And the board had asked for us to come up with another alternative, and so we came up with the actuarial equivalent. So it was never part of law, what
Okay.
you're asking for. It was a proposal. And so program staff were asked to come back, take another look, see if there's another option, and this was the option that we came up with.
Thank you.
No problem.
I don't want to hoard the microphone.
Veena from Orange County.
Hello.
This is just a question not related to exactly this. If an employee who has only 3 years of PERS service and they buy 2 years time prior to membership, can they use that 2 years to get vested in PERS system?
Oh, that would be a question for program staff.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we'll hold that question. I'm sure somebody made note of that, and then we'll answer that. And then the other question would have been if they could change that buy-up, if they could buy back into a classic membership, right?
Yeah. That would be a
If they
question
had
for
prior
program.
service credit that they hadn't purchased earlier. I think we have team members here that can answer those. You don't have to do it right now. We'll get you as we come through. All right, thank you. All right, other questions related to the legislative update? All right, Andrea, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I think we were scheduled for a break, but I think we'll just power through that if that's okay with everybody here. So we'll jump into, is Charles here? There we go. All right. So from our Employer Account Management Division, our team member here, Charles Miller. Oh, and while he works his way up here, in your packets were a solid foundation for the future, and it kind of articulates some of the ALM results of the ALM process. So this is a good document to share with your folks back home about the latest things with CalPERS, some of the notes that I had mentioned in my ALM update.
Hello and good morning. So my name is Charles Miller. I'm from the Employer Account Management Division. I will be speaking to you today on Government Code 2. My name is Charles Miller. I will be speaking today on Government Code 20480, which arose due to the approval of Assembly Bill 1487. So the main objective of this government code is specifically to increase the accuracy and transparency of reporting and tracking out-of-class appointment hours. I do want to emphasize that this in no way impacts final compensation amounts or periods. This is not about compensation. This is about tracking and reporting out-of-class appointment hours. Now, lucky for us, the government code, can we go to the next screen, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
It does actually define what an out-of-class appointment is, and it has certain criteria. Those criteria are that it is an appointment to an upgraded position or higher classification. The appointment must be for a limited duration. It is to a vacant position. and it must be enacted by the employer, governing board, or governing body. Additionally, it's defined as being 960 hours or less within a fiscal year. I want to say that it's not capped. That's just where if an employee works over 960 hours within a fiscal year in an out-of-class appointment, there will be penalties incurred. We're not saying that you can't pay and report individuals above 960 hours in a fiscal year. Now, I did say that one of the criteria for being in an out-of-class appointment is a vacant position. The vacant position is also defined within the statute. The main criteria for vacant position is that the appointment is open during recruitment for a permanent appointment to that position. The recruitment, again, may be enacted by the employer, governing board, or governing body. And one caveat to this is specifically that that authority may be delegated to human resources staff and is more or less pursuant to internal policies and procedures. You don't have to wait for explicit written approval by the governing board or body to start the recruitment process. Some of the more common instances where we see this would be positions that are integral to the functions of the district that somebody has to fill in the interim to actually provide services timely to the community. Additionally, it is specifically not due to a leave of absence from another employee. So if somebody gets sick or injured, that does not count as an out-of-class appointment unless the position is open during recruitment or open for recruitment. Because that is maybe not the clearest, there is an example. So if we consider 3 management employees in 3 tiers of positions, so there's a management 1, management 2, and management 3 employee. If we consider that the management 3 employee left and the position needs to be filled in the interim, if a management 2 employee is put into the management 3 position, if the position is open for recruitment for a permanent appointment, the appointment is for a limited duration because it's a management 2 to management 3 position. It is a higher classification, and it was obviously enacted by the employer. That is an out-of-class appointment. You would have to track those hours. Now, if the management 1 employee then is appointed to the management 2 position, that is not an out-of-class appointment in the context of Government Code 20480. And that is specifically because that is not a vacant position. Namely, the management 2 individual is within the management 3 position. Now, moving forward, we will require agencies and schools to report.
Which one do you?
Sorry, I couldn't fit it all on one slide, so I had to go through 2 of them. Could we go to the fiscal year 17-18 slide?
Got it.
Thank you. We will require schools and agencies to report out-of-class appointment hours for the 17-18 fiscal year. Now, considering the Assembly bill was approved January 1st, 2018, the time would be through January 1st, 2018 to June 30th, 2018. So it's only part of the actual fiscal year. We will send you a reminder within 30 days of the end of the fiscal year. The reminder will include the out-of-class appointment employer certification form, which will have fields for all the pertinent information to provide to us. Per the statute, we are requiring that it's given to us within 30 days at the end of the fiscal year or July 30th. If for whatever reason that doesn't happen, we will send a reminder in September. Now, this is for all Classic and Pepper members. So if somebody works in an out-of-class appointment, the hours need to be reported to us, whether it's less than 960 in the fiscal year or above. If there are no individuals that worked in an out-of-class appointment, or if certain employees didn't work any hours in an out-of-class appointment, you don't have to submit the form for them. So if they don't work any hours, or you don't have anybody that worked any hours, you don't have to worry about submitting information to us. Because there's school employers here, we are going to leave it up to your preference on whether or not the school district or the County Office of Education wants to bear the responsibility for giving us the information. Whatever is easiest for you all. Now, in the future, please, thank you. We are looking to implement functionality into the CalPERS system that will include reporting for multiple employees, as well as just the ability to report online through the CalPERS system. That should be for the fiscal year of 2018-2019. That's what we're anticipating anyway. Additionally, that won't exclude you from reporting through physical mail, electronic mail, or fax. You still have that opportunity as well. And penalties, please. Oh, yes.
Hold on for the microphones.
I hope this isn't a dumb question, but can you explain to me why there's a difference between the two?
Between the two.
Between manager 2 and manager 3?
So in the example I gave, the management 3 position, so if somebody had left and the district
so
starts.
I get one's filling in a vacancy
Right.
for an interim,
Right.
but the other one's now filling in a technical vacancy because the other person is now in a new position.
That's the distinction right there, is the technical vacancy, whereas management 3 doesn't have anybody in the position at all. The management 2
So
is still
how does that
technically-
affect them differently, retirement reporting wise?
So this isn't for retirement reporting or compensation reporting. This is specifically outside of compensation and just for tracking and reporting the hours in and out of class appointment.
So you're just making sure that they're not working more than the 960? And if they are, that there's penalties?
We are ensuring that the hours are tracked and reported to us and then compliant with the government code.
Ramona Coker, Stanislaus County Office. So this is expanding a little bit on what she's asked, which I think answers my question. So this is in addition to the temporary upgrade reporting pay for when someone is working out of their classification.
So this is separate from temporary upgrade pay and out of class pay. This is not about compensation, you're right.
Okay.
It's specifically just about tracking the hours. And this is not going to be tied to payroll or reporting. This is completely separate. If you would like to discuss temporary upgrade pay or out of class pay, I'd be more than happy to talk to you guys about that offline on a case-by-case basis, because that's usually what we have to do is gather the relevant facts for that instance and then give you a definitive answer, or somewhat definitive answer.
Okay. Which is why you said for Pepper or Classic, because the temporary upgrade pay is not reportable for your
I
Pepper
really want to
member.
emphasize that this does not have to do with out-of-class pay or temporary
Okay.
upgrade pay. I just mean that all Classic and Pepper members need the hours reported to us, whether they work an out-of-class appointment.
Okay.
Veena from Orange County. When we have a monthly employees in this position for out of class, so we don't really, track hours. So can we safely use 173.33 for each month and say, okay, that's what it is?
So you don't track out-of-class hours.
For monthly people, let's say when we pay monthly employees, if their pay rate is 5,000,
Mhm.
and they just get 5,000, and the out of class, let's say, is 1,000, we will report out of class as 1,000. There are no hours right now attached to it. Because for us, like they were talking, temporary upgrade is almost same for us as this one, except we do understand what you're saying is this one only requires tracking for vacant positions. My question is, since we don't have hours for salary employees, they just get paid month by month, can we just use 173.33 to give you hours?
They're not
So-
hours, it's just
Yeah.
salary.
If they're
Employees.
if they're in an out-of-class appointment full-time, then it would be the full-time hours. It's all of the hours that they worked in the appointment.
So that
it
means
would
I
be-
have to see each month it's 20 days, 21, 22? Is that what you mean?
Yes, you have to track the specific hours that they work in that appointment.
And if they had a dockage and take that into account?
If they had a doc,
Let's say, so I have to take into account actual hours they have.
yes, the
Right.
hours that they work in the appointment.
Okay. And my other question in here is, which I think you already answered, because temporary upgrade is different than this out of class. So in your example, manager 1 can keep on going for a million years for getting temporary upgrade. There is no cap.
I'm not going to speak to that. I'm just, so
Okay.
that isn't in the context of 20480 for an
Okay.
out-of-class appointment.
And this out of class, you said currently the form which will come will be one form per person
It'll be one form per person right now. Yes.
right now.
For
And
everybody that worked any hours in an out-of-class appointment.
so we can use one form for the whole Orange County?
No,
at
no,
different
one form
district?
per individual.
Oh,
that
per
worked in it,
individual.
yeah.
Or later on, we will have a multiple people?
We're working on some enhancements within the system and other
Okay.
enhancements as well to streamline the process as much as possible. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
So the form is going to be sent to the county office, or is it? It's not going to be sent to each of our districts. It's going to be sent to the county office, and it's going to be up to us to gather the information
I
from the
believe it's going to be
districts.
sent to all employers with the address on file.
We have districts that have address
with-
on file.
Yes, exactly. So to the districts.
So it's going to be sent to each district.
Every employer, yes, so the district as well.
Okay, so the county office really doesn't have to gather that information and supply it to CalPERS.
No, that's why I'm saying it's your preference whether you want the districts to do it or the county office. It's whatever is easier for the employers.
So each district would have to do one form per employee.
Yes.
No, it's at the end of the fiscal
Over the
year.
course of the fiscal year.
Yeah. Okay. And
No.
that was going to be my next question. If the form that is in the circular letter could be replaced with an Excel form where you could list all the employees, because it could be 10 or even more employees per district that need to be reported.
Yeah, we understand. We are trying to comply this year as quickly as possible so that we can give you the tools necessary to actually comply as well. And that's what we're able to do. Unfortunately, this year, you will have to fill out one form per individual that worked an out-of-class appointment.
Okay.
Yes.
This truly is a dumb question.
No,
Sheila
no.
Walker from Tehama County Department of Ed. Why is this necessary?
So this mitigates any future work that both districts and CalPERS would have to use to get any information about out-of-class hours. Out-of-class appointments and out-of-class hours are pertinent to a lot of different processes. So this just allows us to gather the information ongoing instead of trying to gather it all at once for any reason. There's a lot of reasons why we may, and that's not really the point of the presentation. But we will, it's really just to track the hours.
I understand that. I just don't know how. This is another added thing that we have to do. I was just trying to figure out why, in the process, why is this necessary for you guys to even know?
There's numerous reasons why we would use out-of-class hours, and we have to track the hours. I'm sure you would agree that it would be far easier for you all to provide the information on an ongoing basis rather than all at once for several years.
So this could be something that will be in an audit at some point in time.
I can't say definitively.
Hi, just to answer your question, I think the spirit of the bill itself, hi, again, I'm Kevin with the EAMD. One of the spirit of the bill is to create the transparency in these type of out-of-class appointments. So really what happens a lot of time is, yes, we understand it's a cost-saving mechanism where you place employee, or using this example, you place the manager 2 in the manager 3 position. But a lot of times what if there's another manager 2, it's not fair for Charles or it's not fair for Vina not having the opportunity to be in that manager 3 position. So this creates the limit of the 960 hours to promote the transparency and really give the others the opportunity to be in that position as well. And that's one of the spirit of the bill that was presented. No, it's definitely not. It's something that was definitely brought up by one of the fire union reps or one of the attorneys. This creates the transparency of allowing different position for other members. So, but it's not something that is proposed by CalPERS, but it is something that we are supporting based on the decision from the judge.
Hi, Renee Lamb from Napa County. I have a question. So those that are reported to PERS with special comp TUP, I'm assuming you're going to be expecting the documentation? Because you're saying that it's completely separate from reporting and compensation, yet how would you know? You would know who's being reported as TUP. So I'm assuming you would expect these documentations?
So temporary upgrade pay and out-of-class pay are two distinct things themselves, and this is specifically for an out-of-class appointment, defines what an out-of-class appointment is, and then tracking the hours within that appointment, not whether or not they would qualify for TUP or out-of-class pay, and then what substantiation we require for either of those. If you want to give me your contact information, I'd be happy to discuss the compensation portion with you if you have a specific example, but it's not really about 20480 when we're talking about compensation.
I'm just really confused. I'm just really confused because we all hear report and compensation and report to CalPERS. And if this is going to change, it's going to change how all of our districts and how everything is going to be processed for temporary upgrade pay or out of class. So we're just trying to understand what exactly that means for us, and it's not very clear for us at this point.
Fully understand. We are working on that, and we will supply the information on a case-by-case basis when we have details. Again, the extent of this is specifically to define what an out-of-class appointment is and tracking the hours for that, and then how you can give that information to us for this fiscal year to comply with the government code.
I think to clarify your question, just to give a little background on temporary upgrade pay, it's a special compensation item. It's generally for someone who's performing 100% of upgraded duties for maybe, using the example, a manager 2 performing at a manager 3 position. A lot of times in those instances, it's where you would have the manager 2 not place into the actual appointment, but the manager 2 is performing 100% of duty as a manager 3, and because of that, the manager 2 is receiving their manager 2 pay rate. However, they're supplying it as a special compensation item, which is a temporary upgrade pay. However, whatever percent that was defined in your labor agreement or MOUs, for example, and that special compensation gets tacked on. Whereas in this scenario, with the AB 1487, this person is actually being placed into that manager 3 position. This person is now in the out-of-class appointment and also receiving the pay rate as a manager 3. So there's of course some relations. However, it's a separate reporting aspect. What we're looking for is for the reporting of tracking the hours. We're not worrying about the actual temporary upgrade piece, which is special compensation side.
So really quickly, Andrea Peters, again, CalPERS Legislative Affairs. So before we move any further, I'm going to reference a circular letter that you guys will want to look up for additional information. It's going to be 200-021-18, and that's going to give you more information on how CalPERS is implementing this particular provision. This bill was Assembly Bill 1487 from last year. And it was sponsored by the California Professional Firefighters. They had some issues with out-of-class appointments, specific for out-of-class appointments, and they had introduced this legislation, and it fell within the law that is implemented by the California Public Employees Retirement System. This is specific to out-of-class. And it was one of the things that we tried to make very clear in the bill language, that this is not related to temporary upgrade pay or any type of compensation. This is specific to address an issue that they had with regarding out-of-class appointments. And the vehicle that they used to do this was to have CalPERS, because we are already receiving some of this information, to have us also receive the hours for out-of-class appointments. So again, this was not sponsored by CalPERS. It was just something that happened to land within our government code, and so we have to implement the bill. Does that help a little bit understand where we're coming from? It is not related to compensation, and we hope that the language that is currently in the government code, it should be clear enough that this is not related to compensation. This is related to reporting hours for out-of-class positions, and it was very specific, as we were talking in the first slide, that it had to be a vacant position, and it had to be not a limited term appointment. It's very specific, but again, not related to compensation, specific to just reporting hours.
Any other?
This is not a question. I just wanted you to know there was just a couple of days ago, fiscal services, you know how they issue those letters? They had a very good explanation. I just haven't memorized it, but why this bill came into place. So I was just going to email to you guys that fiscal services, it gives a very good explanation about this bill, what happened. So I just thought, thank you.
I had a quick question here. For the 960 hours, is that total out-of-class appointments, or does that reset if it's like two separate out-of-class appointments?
So it's each out-of-class appointment.
Okay, so someone could
within a fiscal year.
someone could technically serve in two and not exceed the 960 in either or and be fine? No
Yes.
penalties? Okay, thank you.
I know we had one more in the back there.
Hi, this is Lori from Los Rios Community College, and in regards to the penalty for working over the 960 hour, is that penalty billed to both employee and employer, or just to the employer?
Is debited to the employer, and
the
it's specifically for administrative fees for CalPERS.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Any more questions before we move on? All right. So the last portion of this covers the penalties that we just asked about. The easiest way to explain it is specifically that it's 3 times, so the value is 3 times the contributions, so both employer and member paid contributions on the compensation attributable to the out-of-class appointment. So for an easy example, let's say the management 2 position was paid 10% less than the management 3 position. When the individual is placed in the management 3 position and works over 960 hours, the penalty is 3 times the employer and member contribution rate paid on that 10% for all hours worked in the out-of-class appointment. Not just those over 960, all hours worked in the out-of-class appointment. For the fiscal year.
Charles, could you repeat for the microphone her comment so that people know what your answer was about?
So she specifically asked about, I'm sorry, what was the question again from Los Rios?
The question was the penalty, if it is going to be billed to both employer and employee, or just the employer?
So she asked whether or not the administrative fee was going to be billed to the members and the employers. It is just billed to the employer, and it's debited to their account through administrative fees, not for contributions.
And then the question up here was about all 960 hours retroactive back to that, and you said for the whole
Right,
fiscal
so
year?
it is for the whole fiscal year. It's all hours within the fiscal year, as long as they breach the 960-hour threshold.
We have a few questions from the web coming in on this. Just want to skim through those here real quick. Sorry, computer malfunctioning. All right, so in the past, we have been told that working out of class would not be reportable as special comp. For example, if an admin 2 is performing some duties of admin 3 and receiving 5% working out of class pay, that is not reportable according to what we've been told in the past. Please clarify.
So the only special compensation item that may pertain to this, like we said before, is temporary upgrade pay, which is only available to classic members. Temporary upgrade pay has its own set of criteria and requirements, as well as the requirements for special compensation. I again, do want to specify that this is not really about compensation, just about the out-of-class hours. In this specific instance, that sounds like it's special compensation.
And then next, do I understand correctly, the out-of-class form is going to be sent to each employer? I know
Yes.
that's already been addressed.
Yes.
Okay. And lastly, and I think this is going to be, again, kind of more of a compensation question. So if that's the case, we can take this offline. We have been told over and over that working out of class is only reportable if the employee is performing 100% of the job duties related to the higher position, that they must discontinue job duties related to their position. Based on the example given, if member B is working out of class in the management 3 position, but continues to perform job responsibilities of the manager 2 position during the working out of class recruitment, we would not consider the additional pay, temporary upgrade pay, to be creditable to PERS. Would these hours need to be reported on the end of the form?
Right, so in this case, that is temporary upgrade pay. That is special compensation. This is specifically about out-of-class appointments. And in that case, it sounds like they're working additional duties in separate classifications as well. And again, I would have to see more, like all of the information surrounding that specific instance to try and provide a definitive answer on the compensation side of that.
Yeah. Okay. That's all we have from the web right now.
Okay, that was it. Thank you.
All right, anything else for Charles? Last call?
Yes.
Okay, hang on for the mic.
Ramona Coker, Stanislaus. There isn't an appointment change that needs to be made on the individual in my CalPERS, correct?
No.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Charles. Well, kind of leave it up to you, but after the lengthy discussion, you could take your break now, or we could just continue to go forward here. Any particular sentiments? Okay, let's take about a 10-minute break, try to be back in here at 10:35. Thank you. All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and try to get started again. And Kevin and Charles, if you can go ahead and go outside if you want with folks if they got some more questions, but we're going to get started. I didn't want to break up a good party there, so. All right, next we have our general membership overview for schools, and we have Emily DeFlores and Christina Rollins, and I'll turn it over to Christina. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that last topic was pretty intense, so hopefully ours will be a little bit easier to get through. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. My name is Christina Rollins, and with me, this is Emily DeFlores, and Emily and I are managers in membership services here at CalPERS. So basically, our role is determining membership eligibility for employees that work for CalPERS employers. So I know all of you pretty much know the basic membership rules. And our topic sounds a little broad. It says general membership overview. But we're going to change it up a little bit for the presentation today. Instead of just standing up here and presenting the same basic membership rules that we go over pretty much every SEAC, we're going to instead present complex or common scenarios that you probably experience at your schools every day. So we have 3 different scenarios, and we'll be presenting those to you. We'll give you guys 1 or 2 minutes to kind of discuss them at your table, and then Emily and I will go over the answers. So that's going to be our presentation route for the general membership overview today. And we will ask that if you have specific questions, that you ask them at the end of the scenarios so that Emily and I can get through all of the scenarios in the time allotted today. So we'll go over some of just a few basic membership rules as a reminder. So as you guys know, the membership, well, who qualifies for membership is going to be based on the time base and the tenure for the employees that you hire at your agencies. So there will be some employees who qualify for immediate membership, some that you have to monitor for membership, and others that will be excluded from membership based on your retirement contract. So the employees that would qualify for immediate membership would be those full-time continuous employees who are working full-time and they have continuous employment in excess of 6 months or longer. Also, if the appointment is a regular part-time position that is for 1 year or longer or at least 20 hours a week. And then the other positions that would qualify for immediate membership would be the once a member, always a member. So those would be those employees who have prior CalPERS service, and no matter what their time base and tenure is, when they're hired at your agency, they will qualify for immediate membership under that once a member, always a member rule. And so Government Code 20305 outlines the qualifications for membership for employees who don't qualify immediately. And so these positions are the positions that will need to be monitored by your agency. So they're temporary, seasonal, limited term, on-call, emergency, intermittent employees. These employees will have to be monitored for membership. So for those employees, if they reach 1,000 hours in a fiscal year, they will qualify for membership. This is the basic stuff. I feel like we go over this all the time. So what constitutes 1 year? This came up at the last SEAC, I believe, about the school year and what constitutes 1 year for CalPERS purposes. So as all of you are aware, the school employees are a little bit different, right? Because they don't necessarily work 12 months out of the year. They work maybe 10 or 11 months sometimes. So we actually had a presidential decision here at CalPERS that we used. It's a Covina Valley Unified School District presidential decision, if you ever want to look it up. But basically, it says that for school employees, 1 year means 10, 11, or 12 months. Okay, with that, we're going to get started with our first scenario, and I'll turn it over to Emily.
Thank you, Christina. So scenario number 1, Beverly Hills Unified School District, which we'll call Site A, hires Brad Pitt on August 1st, 2017 for the length of the school year in a 15-hour-a-week cafeteria position. The same district hires Mr. Pitt on August 1st, 2017 for the length of the school year in a 5-hour-a-week instructional aide position at Site B. Mr. Pitt is currently not a member of CalPERS. Does Mr. Pitt qualify for membership on August 1st, 2017, or should the district continue to monitor for the employment for the 1,000-hour rule or any change in employment conditions? Amongst each other. You guys can talk amongst each other. Okay, does somebody want to give us an answer?
He qualifies for immediate membership upon hire.
That's correct. Because the combined amount of both positions is equal to at least half-time for the term of 1 year, Brad Pitt would qualify for immediate membership on August 1st, 2017. The school year is equivalent again to 10, 11, or 12 months and does not require a 12-month tenure.
Okay, so on to scenario number 2. Sally Field works as an office assistant at ABC School District from May 1st, 2005 to current at $20 per hour. And it's a full-time position. Ms. Field also began working as an office technician at XYZ School District from September 1st, 2014 to current at $25 per hour. Payroll has been reported by both districts for several fiscal years. What is the role of CalPERS and the employer? So spoiler alert, this is overtime scenario. So we'll give you guys a minute or so to go over to talk about it. It doesn't matter if they're in the same. They're full-time. Oh, full-time. I said, it's not in there, I just said that. They're both full-time. Okay, yeah, I noticed that when I saw it. So that's added in there. We're doing good on time. We're doing good. Okay, does anybody want to answer the question? What is CalPERS and the employer's role in this scenario? Okay.
This is Raina from Riverside County. I actually have a question about what CalPERS role is, but the answer would be that from 2014 forward, because the rate was higher, that they would be the contributory district. In this example, if those two districts were in two different counties, we don't have a way to know that they are contributing in another position. So what is CalPERS' role in notifying us? Because in this scenario, it's been 4 years.
Okay, okay. So I'll answer that. I'll go over CalPERS' role and the employer. So CalPERS determines that XYZ school district is a contributory appointment from September 1st to current because the pay rate is higher. ABC School District is now the non-contributory appointment beginning September 1st, 2014. An overtime determination letter from CalPERS is going to be mailed to ABC School District advising them to reverse payroll for the time frame of September 1st, 2014 to current. ABC School District will reimburse the member for their contributions. And then upon completion of reversals, the overtime letter instructs ABC School District to notify CalPERS through our membership reporting email address so we could update the member's appointment to non-contributory. Then going forward, ABC School District will just continue to track the members' hours. And we are having system issues with our contributory, non-contributory, so that could explain the delay in notifying. If you have questions about the scenario, can we ask at the end when we go to the last one? Okay, perfect.
Okay, let's go to our last scenario. Lester Holt began working for the Valley School District on January 1st, 2016 in a permanent, indeterminate crossing guard position for 3 hours a day for the school year. The school year is 11 months, and the district monitors employees' hours. On January 1st, 2018, Mr. Holt's time base and tenure changes to a permanent part-time for 4 hours a day for the school year. Should the district continue to monitor the employee's employment? Answer, anyone? She answered. She raised her hand back there.
Tina Wolverton from Lodi Unified, and the answer would be you do not continue to report, you report them immediately.
Correct. You no longer have to continue monitoring. At the time that that appointment's taken at permanent part-time for 4 hours, that's when you should enroll them into CalPERS membership. They now become an immediate. So, things to remember. Remember to monitor and track the hours of employment for your part-time seasonal intermittent employees, and make sure that all employees are filling out the notice of exclusion form and the reciprocal self-certification form. Again, here are our resources. If you have any questions, you can email membership_reporting@calpers.ca.gov. And now we'll open it for any additional questions. Ramona.
Ramona Stanislas. To expand on what Rena had said from Riverside, on your two positions that are contributory until notified differently, if it is in my county and I can see all of the information, do I contact CalPERS to let them know so that I can avoid doing adjustments? Because I can see that clearly one makes more than the other.
We ask that you still report
them
and
as
we make the
members. Okay,
determination.
I
Yes,
am, but I
yes.
just don't want to do
And,
the adjustment.
and we do, and we will notify you, but you could always send us an email too, and then
I do, yeah.
we will alert it and we can make the adjustment once we see it, but we ask that you continue to report it.
All right.
Anna from Riverside County. We have starting to receive those letters where we're notified that the employer has a full-time position at a different county or city, and to the request to back up the contributions and the refund the employee. One example, a letter that we received was for 4 years, and it's given us only 30 days, I believe, to make the corrections. It's not enough time to get all that done, so I was
Okay.
wondering if
When you get this letter, you can always send us an email to the membership reporting box or give us a call, and we can work with you, because we understand that going back that many years, it could take time to make the adjustments. We'd like them within the 30 days, just as a reminder, so that you're on top of it, but we'd be willing to work with you to allow the appropriate time for you to process those adjustments and the reversals.
And along those lines, the situation that we just recently dealt with, it's about 12 years, where they were working for a school district and the county and not contributing at either office and working full-time positions. And there was a mix-up several years ago on who paid more. And so there was just some confusion years ago. Along those same lines with when CalPERS would notify us, how would we have known, because we're not in the same system, other than it's up to the employee, but that the district is then stuck with this penalties?
Yeah, I mean, there really is no way. Go ahead.
So there's a couple of things. If they were enrolled in my CalPERS and payroll wasn't being reported, there should have been some kind of alert there.
There was payroll being reported, but they were marked as working full-time at a higher rate in another capacity in another district.
So you were marking them on your end, and that's what wasn't being reported to us, correct?
Yeah, and same from the county.
Yeah, so we can't deal with the outer systems, just with CalPERS. So at that point in time, it becomes arrears.
So it's really just, we need to follow up, the districts truly need to follow up with all those employees to make sure and ask them maybe on an annual basis what their salary is at their other jobs.
Yes. Are there any other questions?
My first question is that I had this, and I know that you just mentioned that you guys just did that 10, 11, 12 months make a year. And I don't know if family remembers, I had big spreadsheets of adjustments for more than one district, 2 or 3, I think, with lots of employees that they work 4 hours, means 20 hours a week, but they work only 9 months. And at the time, my understanding was because they never qualified, they never met 1,000 hours, but they were working half-time. So we had to make them a member and go back and collect all the arrears. So now going forward, because you clarified 10, 11, 12 months make a member, so even if they are half-time, but they are for 9 months, we will monitor. And they will never become members.
The 9 months, if the school year is 9 months, then if they are working half-time, then you need to enroll them.
So I think it should clarify there that the school year.
So that's what the presidential decision talks about, is a school year equals a year. When you read the law, it says 20 hours for a year or
Okay, so
longer.
if 9
So school year
months-
would equal a year.
Okay, if 9 months is a school year for those positions, then they do qualify because they are working half-time.
Yes.
Okay, makes me feel better because we made all those changes. And next one, thank you for bringing that because I brought that with me all these corrections. And I was just going to say that for fun, that PERS took almost 1,100 days plus change to notify us to correct it, and then you are giving us 30 days only.
Yeah, and
to
that's what I
correct.
explained. I know that
Yeah.
we're having our system issues, which is the reason for the delay, but the standard is the 30 days, right? Because we would like it at that time, but we understand that if you
But
can't,
we
so.
have never, I mean, to best of my knowledge, received anything within 3 months, a notification from PERS that this is an overtime position. It takes ever and ever.
Yes, and we're
So the
hopefully we'll
system
fix
never
that.
worked?
It hasn't been working, so we're hoping to fix it
Okay,
soon. But yeah, it has not been working
okay,
appropriately according to the 3 months that we would like it to right
okay,
now.
thank you. Oh, what happens to the interest?
What happens? There is no interest.
No, in their money, when they were submitting the money to PERS, they lost that interest?
Right, so the payroll reversals just get reversed
I
and the
know.
contributions go,
Yes, I
are given back.
understand.
It would be an in-service distribution and we don't give interest to those accounts that are reversed
So
and
it
corrected.
might be a good idea for them to terminate, get a refund with interest, and then come back. I'm just.
You might be charged arrears.
Well, can you take one more question, because I think that Emily and I are going over our time.
Sheila Walker, Tehama County Department of Ed. I just want to clarify with you guys, because ever since we went on the new CalPERS system, I have never received anything from you guys telling me I'm reporting 2 positions and it's overtime. So this is a brand new thing, brand new letter that we're going to be getting.
Yes, as we're working on our system, improving the system and doing that, then yes, the letters should start generating.
Okay, now do you go clear back to when your new system started? Or how far back are you going to be
To
going?
whenever the positions are reported and the contributory, non-contributory appointment situation happened, that's how far we'll go back.
Okay.
Just a quick one. Okay. So in the case where we get that letter that we're non-contributory because the employee is working full-time someplace else, if that employee leaves that other position, is CalPERS going to be able to let us know that now we need to start contributing for that employee?
Yeah, that'll be part of the fix in our system, yes. So yes. Once it
Okay,
gets
my
fixed, it will be-
concern is we may have, a year or two, and now this employee has no contributions, now we have to collect. So I don't know the timing of how soon we'll be able to know that information?
Yeah, we're not clear on when that will be in. Before, I don't.
Yeah,
we wouldn't-
this, unfortunately, we can't just say, hey, we need this fixed to the system. It has to go through a process within CalPERS to see what is the highest priority that needs to happen for the system. So unfortunately, we don't have the exact date that this will be implemented, but some of the issues that we know of for the overtime or contributory, non-contributory issues is the trigger and the notifications to the employers. And that's why it's important that you do report or enroll all of the positions. We'll mark which ones are non-contributory, and then part of that fix would be the notification to the employer, hey, they left the contributing appointment, now start reporting on your end. So that's all part of the system fixes we're looking for.
Hold on for the microphone.
Do you think it will take long time to fix the system and all those people, like zillions of people are in per system?
Just
So
thousands.
going forward, is it possible for you guys to create another type of appointment that we can report on file, like a overtime position, when we can see people that we know of?
So isn't there a value that they report?
Because that might work faster.
But yeah, unfortunately, we don't have the resources to do that at this time. It'll just have to be
It's
the
PERS,
fix.
a big entity.
I know. We have thousands of those cases, so we're just hoping that we're hoping
Yeah.
that fix will go in soon.
What, Social Security on the overtime?
Okay, so any questions that you guys have after this, we'll ask at the end because our time is up. So Emily and I will be here for the duration of the morning for the SEAC. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you. So now we have on post-retirement employment, Jennifer Rocco is our Assistant Division Chief in our Employer Account Management Division. So welcome, Jennifer. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. Hi, everybody. Everyone doing good? I see smiles. That's a good sign. So I know at the last SEAC, I came and spoke a lot about AB 1309, and I know that we had some questions posed, which I'd like to hold until the end of this presentation. So do we have the deck, the slides for this one?
Yep.
Is it on? Oh, there we go. All right.
You can use this one or just tell me and I'll forward it.
I got it. Okay. So what I wanted to review with everyone today is the post-retirement employment restrictions. So this seems to be an area where we just continue to have issues crop up. So hopefully today I can go through this with you and make sure that we're all on the same page, answer any questions, just so that we can try and prevent the reinstatement consequences that come along with violating these rules. So I think we know that for our purposes with schools, a retired annuitant is anyone that retires from CalPERS and comes back to work in a CalPERS covered position. If they come back to work in a CalSTRS covered position, we're not interested. But if they do return to work in a CalPERS covered position, those are the individuals that need to be enrolled and reported to CalPERS. So there's a couple requirements prior to bringing the retiree back. So they have to serve a bona fide separation and a wait period. So the bona fide separation is an Internal Revenue Code requirement, and it only applies to a retiree if they retire before their normal retirement age. So if they have a 2 at 55 formula, it would only apply if they retire prior to 55. If they have multiple formulas, we look to whatever the highest age is in all of those formulas. For this bona fide separation, it is a 60-day period. During those 60 days, they can't be talking about returning to work, negotiating what their salary might be. There is no talk of employment until that 60-day period is served. The wait period, this is in the government code. So bona fide separation, that's Internal Revenue Service. The wait period is in the government code. That's 180 days. They have to have a break between their retirement date and the day they return back to work. There are some exceptions, and there's also a process where the board or governing body can sign a resolution in certain situations to bring that person back sooner than 180 days if there was some type of an emergency, for example. And then there is no exception to this 180-day wait period if that individual received any type of retirement incentive. So just keep that in mind. So employment requirements. So you have someone, they've served their break, their 60 days, 180 days, whatever the case may be. If you want to have them come back to work, I'll go through those requirements now. So it has to be of a limited duration. So you cannot bring back a retiree to fill a permanent or regular position. They have to be a retired annuitant. They have to have some special skills needed to perform the job. So maybe you have a backlog that needs to be cleared. Maybe there was a project going on and you need their specialized skills to come back and finish out that project timely. Also, bringing them back during an emergency. So if it's something where business has stopped and you can't continue without having this individual come back, that would be another example where a retiree could come in and help. But the key is right at the top there. It's a limited duration. So there's some box around how long this person is going to be there, till the project ends, till the backlog's clear, till the emergency is over. So hours, 960 hours in a fiscal year. That is the maximum that a retiree can work, no, without any exception. That's a hard rule. These retired annuitants I mentioned earlier, they have to be enrolled and reported in my CalPERS. This is also in line with AB 1309, which I talked to you all about last time. We will monitor the hours that are reported. When they reach 700 hours and 800 hours, notices will go out, kind of say, you know, hey, you're getting close. You want to keep an eye on this to help prevent individuals from going over the 960. Accuracy depends on payroll reporting. So it is very important that if you have a retiree working for you, that you are enrolling and reporting them, and that everyone else is as well. Because our system is only going to know what's reported to us, and it's only going to send out the notices based on what's in the system. So if we have a retiree who's working at 2 districts, and only 1 district has got them enrolled and reported, and that's all we know about, and they're working over here, we have no idea that that retiree could potentially be going over the hours. So it is incredibly important that they are enrolled and reported to us. And then the other reason it's helpful is we can use it to validate the wait period. So we could look at their retirement date, look at when they were began working at the district to validate if that 180-day break is there. We don't have to reach out to you and say, you know, when did this person come back to work? We need them enrolled. It'll all already be in the system for us. So compensation. So this is an issue that actually has come up fairly recently that Christina's team is handling. A retiree can only receive the base salary for the position as it's stated on your publicly available pay schedule. They can't receive some other benefits like things like having use of a car or vacation, holiday pay. All of those things cannot be paid to a retired annuitant. We actually have a list of cases now that we're reviewing where there's retirees who have received a considerable amount of additional benefits over the last few years, and we're having to go back now, clean that up, and work with the employer because they could be reinstated from retirement as a result of receiving those additional benefits. So it's super important. The salary that's on your publicly available pay schedule, that's what they get. That's it. It has to be what's on the pay schedule for that position. It can't be above or below. It has to be in that range. Vacant position appointments. So these are a little bit unique. They're subject to all of the restrictions and rules that I've already talked about. But this is where you have a unique position. So like only one person would fill this position, like a school business official, or it could be like maybe an HR manager, somewhere where you've only got one of this person and you have to have someone working in that role while you're recruiting. So a retiree can only be appointed to that vacancy once. So once you appoint them and say that they're going to be there for 6 months, if in those 6 months you haven't filled your vacancy and don't have a permanent appointment, you can't appoint the retiree again to that position. So it's very important when you put the language together for the time that this retiree is going to serve that you think about how long is it going to take you to recruit and have a permanent individual to go into the position. Because again, if you say 6 months and you're not done recruiting and you don't have someone, you can't do a second appointment for that retiree. The recruitment, again, it has to be while you're recruiting for the position. So you can't appoint a retiree and just wait, 3 or 4 months before you go out and recruit. That recruitment should be happening before you appoint someone into that position. So whether it be maybe you hire a headhunter or a private firm to do some recruitment for you, you start processing the paperwork and put the vacancy out on the street for recruitment. Something has to be happening moving towards filling the position before you can put a retiree into that vacant position. All right, so finally, this is the tough part, and this is why, I know we talk about working after retirement, post-retirement employment quite a bit here and at the forum, but the consequences to a retiree they're pretty dreadful, to be honest. So we're trying to get ahead of it and prevent these things from happening. We don't want to do this. We don't like to do this, but we're subject to the laws that say we have to. So mandatory termination of retirement. That person's going to be reinstated, potentially back to when they started working as a retired annuitant. We're going to collect any retirement allowance that they received for that time period. In some cases it's 3 months, and sometimes it's 3 years or even longer, where the retiree has to pay back that money that they received. They also have to be enrolled and reported. We have to get contributions from both now they're a member and they're not a retiree anymore, the member and the employer for that period of time. Again, it could be 3 months, 3 years, however long it is. And then the retiree can re-retire if they were to stop working as a retired annuitant, and they can re-retire at that date. But they'll lose any COLAs that they were entitled to across that time period. So the financial burden can be great, depending sometimes the amount that they need to repay for retirement benefits. Sometimes that's lower than the additional retirement benefit that they'll receive, but it still can be an impact to them to have to going forward have to repay those amounts. So it's not a good situation, and if there's any administrative expenses too, those need to be repaid to CalPERS as well. All right, so again, these are all the resources. I think I've gone over them here before, but we have 3 circular letters out there. There's an excellent employer checklist for hiring a retiree. I strongly suggest you have that with you and maybe look at it before you move forward with hiring a retiree. We have the sample 180-day wait period exception resolutions, so that's the document that'll need to go before the board or governing body if you want to bring someone back sooner than 180 days. The PA Schools Reference Guide, Pub 33, Employment After Retirement, that's good for both the retiree who's thinking about returning to work and for the employer to take a look at. And then there's a guide to reinstatement from retirement that also has some information that could be helpful. So if you have questions, you could always reach out to the Customer Contact Center, visit our website. The membership reporting box is up here. You can certainly reference that if you have questions. Also, the Working After Retirement mailbox, the teams that monitor those boxes will be able to respond to your questions or get them to the appropriate team member to resolve. And then I put some information up here about employer education, so business rules training, my CalPERS training, and computer-based training, so please use those resources if you haven't before. We have a lot of great tools out there to help you along. And then I think before the panel discussion, does anyone have any questions about the post-retirement employment restrictions? And then we can hit on the AB 1309 questions.
I have a question from the web while Renee takes the mic over. What is the limited duration for a position that they're filling? Say somebody working in payroll, how long can they work that position? Is there a maximum amount of time before they can no longer work there?
So we don't put a maximum number of hours on the position. Like I said, it's dependent upon the job you're bringing them back to do. So if you're bringing them back to wrap up a project and that project is expected to end in 6 months, that's your limited duration is 6 months. If you're bringing them back to clear a backlog and maybe that's only going to take 2 months, that's the limited duration and that's the amount of time that you could bring them back. Now, you could also bring them back to help with the backlog for 2 months, and then have them help with the project for 6 months. But really, the idea is when you're bringing them on, you know how long what they're there to do and how long they're there to work. If there's something else that comes up after they, wrap up that task that you'd like them to help with, again, the idea is it's a limited duration and you have an idea of how long that person is expected to be there. So no, we don't say a maximum hours other than 960 in a fiscal year, but we won't tell you how many hours they can work a week, a month, or what have you. Just don't go over 960 in a fiscal year. There was another question.
Under the bona fide separation, if someone does retire under the normal retirement age, is that 60-day waiting period on top of the 180-day that everyone has?
They can be concurrent, so they
Okay.
can serve them at the same time. So they can do the 60 and the 180 at the same time.
Okay, so
The maximum wait period
essentially
is
everyone has to
180.
wait the 180.
Unless you have a resolution to bring them back sooner, right?
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead. Hey.
I have a question or a clarification on the 180-day resolution. We've always asked our districts to send their resolution to us, and then we submit one that's done by our county office. Just recently, one of our districts contacted CalPERS, and they accepted their resolution at the district level, but they never received an approval. So did anything change, or it should still be the COE resolution that you are accepting?
So it would be the governing body for the district. If that's the COE, then that's who should be signing it. But if they have their own governing body with a superintendent and a board, then we would let that resolution come through, I believe. I'm looking back.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did that change? Yeah, we've never been told. We've been told specifically it has to be the COE doing it. Right, because we're the contract holder.
So it is? I'm looking to Christina to help me out here. So it has to be the COE. Okay, so I guess we'd like to hear about that example so we can go back and correct it.
Okay, and then my other question is on a vacant position. If they actually have an interim in the vacant position, can the retiree still do the 180-day exclusion?
So there's
a vacancy for a director position, but they've
Okay.
assigned somebody at the district to do as an interim, but
Okay.
that person doesn't have the experience to do some of the job duties, and so they wanted to bring the retiree before the 180 days are up.
So yeah, if it's, again, to prevent a stoppage of work, like if the job's not going to get done without the help of that retiree, then yeah, as long as there's a resolution in place and the decision's made that they need to come back, then that would be okay. As long as they're supporting that person in the interim role, they're not filling the interim role. You could just do the 180 days. But if they're going to fill that job, then you have to have a recruitment and all that going on.
Okay.
That makes sense. Hopefully, Bina?
Most of our districts, when they hire a retiree, because PERS retirees, they don't pay into Social Security, so they offer them that ALT, PARS retirement plan. And a while ago, I understand that's considered as a benefit. Is it? Like
for a retiree to participate in a
Into the-
retirement plan
into
or
a
an
alternate-
that would be considered a
A
benefit.
benefit, so
Now,
then-
whether we would reinstate someone for that, I don't know that we would, but we would certainly look at it and instruct for that to not happen going forward.
Okay, because you should clarify that, because even though alternate like PARS and all those companies, they just care about business. I mean, we all do.
Well, yeah.
So they don't care who it is. They just take, name and amount, and that's the end of it. So,
So
it will be nice to clarify
So
even
they
the,
can only get pay rate is the answer. So
Yeah,
that's
that part
it.
is not a problem.
Yeah, so any other benefits, retirement, health,
but it will not.
all that is.
But they won't get reinstated, though, right?
I don't, okay, so we haven't ever reinstated someone for that before, but we would counsel that going forward,
Yeah.
that stops.
Yeah, it will be nice to clarify in
Okay,
one of
that's
your
fair.
circulars and all. Other thing, I just a suggestion that on your publication, Guide to CalPERS Employment After Retirement, 33, if we can add something when teachers, they had elected PERS as their retirement system, and then they retire, and then they are hired either as a teacher or a classified job, their employment. It would be nice to have something there.
Sure.
Okay, thank
I'm
you.
I'm writing down.
Thank you.
Anna Lambert from Riverside Unified. So the compensation says up to the maximum base salary on the publicly available salary schedule. I just wanted to clarify that we do have some districts that have longevity within the salary schedule, and my understanding is that that step-on column will be considered a benefit to the employee. So it will have to be to a step-on column that does not include.
Right, you're correct. We had you had a question.
Sheila Walker, Tama County Department of Ed.
Hi.
We had a situation at a school district where they had a person leave. One of their other employees got that new position, was only in it a short time, decided they didn't want it, went back to their old position. So that position, they had to do a recruitment for again. And they filled it with a retiree in the meantime, without me knowing about it. And
Right.
because they just considered that person was just subbing
Right.
in that position till they found somebody.
Right. So that retiree needs to be enrolled and reported to CalPERS. They should have checked to make sure that they serve a 180-day wait period. Did they serve if the bona fide separation applied? But they have to be enrolled and reported, and we would monitor them accordingly.
Okay.
And shame on them for not letting you know. All right, so I think we might be, are we running out of time? So
We're okay for now. If you have more questions.
are there any other questions about AB 1309 that we want to handle too while we're here? I have some folks over there to help me out with those questions.
Sherry Hansen, Sacramento County Office of Ed. I just have one quick question regarding the benefit portion. We offer our retirees lifetime health benefits, but that's outside of whether or not they're come back and performing service for us. That's fine, correct?
That's correct, because that's tied to their
That's tied to
prior
their
employment as an,
retirement, yes.
that's completely different, yeah. Any other questions or anything? No? All right.
All right.
Thanks,
well, then,
everybody.
Thank you very much. And I'd invite our subject matter experts to join me up here at the head table for any of our panel discussion questions you may have.
I don't want to leave you hanging.
Yeah, thank you. It'll be a real short one if it's just me up here, I'll tell you that.
While everybody's getting settled, we do have a couple questions from the web for some of our subject matter experts. So from Ventura County, and actually there were a couple questions similar to this, so this should answer a few people's inquiries here. So we'd like to ask a question regarding membership for noon aides. Are they exempt from membership for CalPERS if that is their only position?
I'm sorry, what was it?
A noon aide.
I don't know what a noon aide would.
Maybe Jolynn, we can either connect you, or if you could
But it'd look at the
clarify
time
that
base
via
and
email.
it would look at the time base and tenure of the position, just like any other position, and that's how we would make our determination there. Right, or if there's an exclusion, but I don't know that the school's contracts have exclusions, right? Yeah.
Exclusion is from classified service, not
Mhm.
from PERS.
Right.
Right, and then we have a few clarifications on out-of-class appointment. If an employee is not working 100% in the higher position, but is doing most of the duties of the higher position, in addition to their regular duties, do we need to track and report those hours to CalPERS?
No, that would not be considered an out-of-class appointment.
Okay. Number 2, if an employee works 100% in the higher position, does CalPERS now require that we end their current appointment on the CalPERS database and enter a new appointment? Then, once they are done, and end that appointment and re-enter their original appointment? And also, does CalPERS require the district to end the employee's current position in their own personnel records?
No, we're not requiring them to go into the system and end appointments and start new appointments at all.
And lastly, in the example in the PowerPoint, what would we do in this scenario? The management position 3 is currently vacant, but the district has hired a person who will take over that position effective 7/1/18 and is therefore not in active recruitment for that position. The management 2 employee is working in the management 3 position 100% from April to June 2018. Would we need to track and report the hours for that management 2 employee while working the management 3 position?
That's during the recruitment process, so yes.
Okay. And I think that catches us up on all of the emails.
All right, microphones.
Ramona Coker, Stanislaus. I have a membership tier question. If I have a Pepper individual and they turn in a SPM, the service purchase prior to membership, and it puts them in years when they would have qualified as a Classic member, does that change their membership tier to Classic, or do they just stay as a Pepper member with just additional time?
So it's based off their membership date. So if they purchased service prior to membership before 2013,
Mhm.
that's not going to change their benefit enrollment level.
So they still stay as a Pepper member?
Right.
Okay.
If we have an appointed assistant superintendent and she does under 960 hours, so she cannot come back in that position again ever for us, can she come back in a different position as an interim? Not even as an interim, just like as an intermittent employee, short term. Can she come back in a different capacity?
So if, I'm just want to make sure I heard your question. So she served in some interim capacity as.
She was appointed.
A director maybe.
Mhm.
And now she's left that and you want to bring her back to do some other additional duties.
Right.
That would be okay, again, as long as, you meet all the other requirements around it being a limited duration, not going over the 960.
Okay, I
but
just
that-
kept seeing, well, this is a one time only, and I wanted
So it's
to make
the
sure.
one time only is if you appoint that person to a vacant position, that can only happen once. So for whatever the time frame is that you establish for that, that's it. You can't appoint them again to that same vacant position.
Okay, what if a different person comes back as an independent contractor, say as a mentor, as a retiree? Is that reportable?
So what I would say is that they're likely not an independent contractor, and you would need to enroll and report them and treat them as a retired annuitant. We would have to review the situation, but generally speaking, they're probably not an independent contractor. You'd have to report them as a retired annuitant.
CalSTRS has an actual listing of what they could be doing that would be considered credible and reportable as a retiree. Do you have something similar to that in government code?
No, not in the government code, no.
Okay,
But
thank
if you
you.
have a specific case, you can email us and we'll review it for you before you hire them.
Yeah, thank you.
Please.
This is just to clarify. When the employee is in management 3 position, we are only going to report one line saying management 3 salary. So you won't see that out of class pay. Because our districts, they have to know who to monitor. So if they report management 1 or 2 salary, then it gets mixed up with the other people who are not in vacant position. So I had talked to PERS like maybe 2-3 months ago, if it's okay to report them at their salary so they know for 6 months or whatever time period they had worked in that higher position so they can do your report.
Right, so that's specifically for reporting the actual compensation, and that's why I said it's pursuant to internal policies and procedures. It sounds like in this instance that the district would have to track the hours because they're the ones that have the internal documents with the start dates and the end dates and the position titles, whereas the COE doesn't.
Yeah, what I'm saying is we don't want any trouble from auditors and all saying there is no out-of-class pay now for these employees, because it's very hard for us to meet all the rules and build a system just like PERS. It's not easy for us to keep on making changes. So we had talked about it, and I just wanted to make sure, do you see any concern? For those 6 months or 960 hours, we will only report one line of that manager 3 salary.
Okay,
And
so,
there will be no out-of-class pay reported to PERS.
right, so again, it depends on the district. Technically, I would say that the out-of-class pay was reported in the pay rate in that instance, but again, that's for out-of-class pay and reporting the actual compensation. And if you want specific details on how to do that, I would have to see that specific instance. Without all the information, there might be things that I miss. Specifically with the 960 and the hours, that's separate.
Yeah,
Again,
we understand that. My question is we understand and very clear about 960 for vacant position. You're only interested in hours. And temporary upgrade plays its role with meeting those conditions. My point is for our districts to monitor who is getting temporary upgrade so they keep them at a, let's say, management 2 position and report that 5% in a separate line. These people who are in a vacant position, so they can identify them. They just want to only report one line so they know, oh, for this period, for 6 months, this person worked in management 3 position based on the salary. So there will not be additional line.
right, and that's fine. So if it's your
That's
internal
all
policy to have somebody in a separate position paid at that position pay rate, and it's documented, it's on
there-
the form and everything, then that's how it would normally be reported to us anyway,
Yeah.
because I imagine that's how they're paid as well in the payroll software, right? They
Yeah,
have a new
what
pay
I'm
rate.
saying is we don't want compliance then to come now separate, the base pay separate to meet their area's requirement. Now we have to separate the base pay and the out-of-class pay.
So, yeah, so
Yeah,
if it's
that's what I-
100% fine that it is out-of-class pay, then no, you won't have to separate it into special compensation. If we at one point determine that it really wasn't out-of-class pay and it's temporary upgrade pay for a classic member, then yeah, it would have to be separated out.
So you
But
are
I-
going to look at, sorry.
Don't let go of the mic.
Yeah, so you are going to look at these two now as separate item.
No, so
For us, it's in a way same thing.
Okay, yeah,
Temporary upgrade.
again,
In
I
a
just want
way,
to be
it's
clear, we've
same
gotten
thing.
far away from 20480, and now we're just talking about compensation.
Right.
And in that case, yes, we would, I mean, it depends on whether or not it's out of class or temporary upgrade pay, and we would make a determine based on the facts that we have. So I can't say definitively that we're never going to audit and make you break out compensation from pay rate.
You guys have to make up your mind how to report that, because districts have to have a easy way to monitor these things, who are in a vacant position, people, and who are getting temporary upgrade and it's not a vacant position.
Right, so it's a new government code that we have to comply with as well. It may just be something on the district, the COE side, where on internal documentation, you just mark whether or not it's vacant or not, so that you can show that it's out of class vacant, out of class not vacant, or temporary upgrade.
So maybe when you have your letter comes, you should have it clarified, how to do the payroll reporting.
Again, we're not going to do that because it's completely separate from the payroll reporting. This is just the tracking hours. How you actually get that information and track that information internally is up to the districts and the COEs.
Yeah, I think Kevin's coming up to speak to this, I hope, fingers crossed, but I don't think that this law that Charles spoke to changes the payroll reporting requirements at all.
It does not.
Okay.
Yeah, I
But
think to
Kevin-
clarify, I think we're looking at the two scenarios, right? One thing is the out-of-class appointment. In that scenario, most likely, if it follows the 20480, you're actually placing this person in the manager 3 position. And at that point, you would see one line because he or she is in the manager 3 position and you're reporting the base pay rate or whatever range it is on your pay schedule. But if you don't have this person in this appointment, let's say I'm performing the manager 3 position, but I'm not in that position. I'm keeping my manager 2 pay, I get my base pay rate, and at that point, you would report a separate line
And
as a
that's
special.
what I wanted to make sure.
Yes. and-
So we won't have to go back and break those lines 10 years down the line.
No. So in this context, it seems like the person is actually placing the manager 3
Exactly.
appointment. You don't need to break it out because
Okay.
now you actually place this person into that position versus, if I'm the manager 2, I'm performing 100% duty as a manager 3. You never move my position, and at that point, per your labor agreement, let's say I get 5%, 10% of my base pay, then you would see that as a special
As a s-
compensation item.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. It's recorded. I'm just kidding.
Sheila Walker from Tama County Department of Ed. I have about 4 questions. One is on our retirement appointment reconciliation. I have about 5, 6 people that I cannot clear off that. They go back from 2002 to 2009, and no matter what date I try to put in there to end their assignment, it will not take it. And I did email back in January somebody at PERS to help me with this, but who helps me with this?
Yeah. Hello, I'm Tony Carlson with the Employer Account Management Division System Support Unit, and I oversee the Business Partner Support Unit, which also consists of a team that handles the retirement appointment reconciliation. In that situation, I'm not certain of your case, so if you could email the Employer Technical Support mailbox, we can look into that situation and see, we may have to do something behind the scenes to get that resolved for you and working with our IT department.
Okay, and what is that email?
It's, we don't have it on the screen. It's employer_technical_support at calpers.ca.gov.
Okay. Another thing is, my supervisors asked me on the Gatsby fee, the $350 per district. Don't know if anybody can answer this, but we're just wondering if somebody only has 6 employees versus somebody that has 300, why does the employer with the 6 employees have to pay the same amount as the others? Because the work isn't there.
So that would be a question for our financial office. Again, if you want to send that question to our Employer Technical Support mailbox, we can redirect that to the financial office and get you a response.
Okay. From my HR department, on PERS for the Social Security windfall paperwork, are we supposed to be sending a copy of that to PERS? I've heard it 2 different ways now.
Are you speaking about the 1945 form,
I believe so, that notifies the employee that they're
not
subject to that?
Yeah, they could be, yeah, you do have to send a copy to the Triple SA mailbox at CalPERS, so that we have a copy on file. Or if it happens to be a CalSTRS covered position, you need to send it to CalSTRS. So it's whatever the retirement system is that that position is covered by.
Okay, and that was the SSSA email?
Yeah.
Okay. And hopefully my last question. PERS retirees, we have some districts that if they work over 8 hours in a day, they pay them overtime. And we're supposed to monitor for the hours that they work. So does the overtime hours supposed to be included in the hours they work?
So yeah, they're limited to 960 hours in a fiscal year. So they, yeah, you would have to include any hours that they work. But paying overtime is not allowable for retirees, so they cannot work overtime. That's a benefit. So you would need to stop that.
Okay.
Yeah, they can't work overtime. I'm looking.
Okay. Thank you.
So I have a
Well, yeah, a follow-up on that one right there, so.
So I asked that very question at the last SEAC meeting about the retiree being paid the time and a half pay, time and a half the regular rate of pay, because I'd had a retiree for the first time in almost 19 years get shift differential, and I was like, oh,
yeah,
so I
no.
know they couldn't get that.
Right.
Then the following month, I had someone pay time and a half. So I asked at the last SEAC meeting, and I was told that yes, because it's based on the pay rate that's on that salary schedule, and that's.
But that's an additional.
And that's
benefit.
federal regulations that state that if you work over 40 in the week, then they're entitled to time and a half their regular rate of pay.
Right. Well, I mean, we could circle back, but I'm looking at my team over there, and they're saying, no, that'd be an additional benefit. And they shouldn't be working more than 40 hours in the week.
You're right, they shouldn't.
Right.
But in this case, they did, and like I
Well,
said, it's
I
been
get
very
that
rare.
Too. So I mean, they shouldn't be doing it. If they do, you have to pay them. We can't tell you can't pay them, but we would just caution you and make sure that they know they can't work over the 40 hours. You can pay them, because there's a law that says you have to.
Right.
The hours should count to the 960, but we would want that to not happen anymore. However, I mean, I don't know what you do, what counseling, education you provide to these folks, but they shouldn't be working over 40 hours in a week. But if they do, you have to pay them. But yeah, we wouldn't, we would want you to stop that.
Right. And the only reason I'm bringing it is because I just asked at the last meeting, because it just happened in one of our districts, and I didn't know how to handle it, if it was allowable or not, and I was told that yes, that was, while the shift differential was not.
Yeah, I mean, you have to pay the person. You can't not pay them. Just like if I have an employee who shows up for overtime and they're not approved to work overtime, I mean, I still have to pay them for the time they were here, but instruct them that they can't do it going forward.
So I had a question that was aside from this one. It's for comp review. Can they explain the temporary upgrade pay versus out of class, please? Because I'm unclear as to what is different between the two.
Right, so there's no 100% answer. The general rule of thumb, an easy way to think about it, is that temporary upgrade pay is for very temporary positions, leaves us absence, somebody gets sick or injured, somebody fills that position, it's a temporary upgrade. Whereas out of class, somebody is actually classified into that higher classification at the pay rate of that classification. But again, it's always going to be pursuant to labor policies and agreements and internal policies and procedures. And I'd have to have a specific example to tell you whether or not it's out of class.
So my specific example is I have a senior analyst who is out on maternity leave for the next 6 months. So I've put my analyst 100% out of class into that position as temporary upgrade pay. She's paid her base, but she gets the difference between what that position is paying and what her position pays as out of class.
Right, so that would be out of class because
Or
she's
temporary
put
upgrade
in,
pay,
yeah,
but
so
I
the
mean, when you
documentation
report it.
shows her changing from the analyst classification to the other classification, and she's paid at that pay rate?
She's paid her regular pay, and that difference between her regular pay and what that senior is paid as temporary upgrade pay.
Okay.
She's working out of class in that position.
And that's the language present in their labor policy or agreement that says they're
Correct.
paid at that difference, then yeah,
Correct.
it would be temporary upgrade pay in that case.
So then, for an out of class position, basically they are, so what's the difference?
So, again, basically not from a leave of absence. We know what an out-of-class appointment is, and out-of-class pay would be pursuant to labor policies and agreements. If it shows that it's the difference in pay rate and they're moved into that classification with documentation, then it would be an out-of-class pay.
So there is documentation. They are in that position. I mean, it's for a temporary. So we had one, and she was out on a disability. She exhausted her time. The position became vacant until we could fill. We still had that same person filling in. So the person was out on leave. She exhausted her leave. She is now out on the 39-month rehire. We've posted for that position. The one we had filling in for that person is still 100% in that position until the new person starts. So I'm still reporting her normal base, and the difference between her normal base and the position that she's working out of class in as a TUP in retirement reporting, correct?
So it does kind of change. The open recruitment was during the entire time that they were in interim?
Nope.
No, it was just the portion after paternity leave, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the difference right there, because there was the open recruitment started.
So then I could not report that person with her base salary and the difference is special comp with the temporary upgrade pay?
Is the member classic or PEPRA?
If she's classic.
Then yes, it would be fine as temporary, given all the other requirements are met and it meets
So
the
I
definition of
wouldn't
temporary
be
upgrade pay.
reporting her pay like Vina's doing with, this is her pay at the higher rate. I pay the base and the difference between the higher rate and her rate as special comp.
So this is one of the situations with, in light of the new information, we'd have to look at all available information and then discuss it internally and try and give you a definitive answer. My best guess right now would be that the time during paternity leave would be temporary upgrade pay. And then when you start the actual recruitment, it would be out of class pay.
For the reporting under that law, but as far as reporting for payroll,
Right, so reporting for payroll, that would be pursuant to your labor policies and agreements. So if it's such that they get paid a certain amount, the difference in their actual pay rates, then it really depends on, again, the situation, the temporary upgrade pay. So, I mean, when you have a situation like that where it changes in light of new information that we have in government codes, I really can't give you a definitive answer right now. We would have to look at it specifically with everything, your labor policy and agreement, the numbers, the actual pay rate and everything else.
okay. I was just confused because you were saying when you were talking with others, well, that would be temporary upgrade pay. Well, that would be out of class. I'm looking at them going, they're the same thing.
That's why I say it's a general, kind of general rule of thumb that one might be for a temporary leave of absence and one is specifically putting somebody in that classification during recruitment for that classification just to fill it.
So what it sounds like to me, just to make sure I'm getting the scenario correct. This person A is filling in for person B because person B is going on to a maternity leave.
Okay.
If I may confirm, did person A, did he or she gets put into the position, or was it just she's kept her original position? No. Okay. So in that scenario, it seems like if you actually place this person into the position itself, most likely this might not even be a temporary upgrade pay because now you place this person into the position as you are going to be paying as a pay rate. So
I would need to dock her current position and pay her the days of, okay.
No. So most likely you would actually pay the person A at the pay rate of person B. Because right now you're actually placed this person into the position temporarily. So the difference between of an out of class versus a temporary upgrade pay, you're most likely you're not moving the position itself. Person A stays in person A's position and performing 100% of person B's position. And then that's when you provide the temporary upgrade pay because you're just temporary upgrading this person's pay, not upgrading a position. What it seems like from your scenario is you move person A into a person B position, so that's usually in a form of a pay rate. But I'd like to take a look further for you. Maybe I can give you my contact information. We can revisit. But that's what it sounds like to me. But of course, we can review the paperwork. And oftentimes, if you provide a temporary upgrade pay, most scenarios, it's 5 or 10% of someone's base in the labor policy agreement. It's very rare that we would see it will be a difference between position A and position B, a portion of that, because we're at that point, the condition of payment is not very clear. I could be a secretary, with a manager, and the difference is it's a great disparity between a manager 1 and a manager 2. So that's something that we look at, and I'll be more than happy to take a look further for you.
I have a PEPRA member question, I guess. We have a PEPRA member. She is looking into a redeposit of prior that she had taken a withdrawal from, and that was like back in 2008. So under that, she was classic. So if she were to purchase that redeposit, does that change the date and make her classic, or is she still PEPRA?
What employer is she redepositing time with? Is it the same employer?
Yeah, it's either a county office or a district. I can't remember. She's at a county office right now, and it's with a different county office or district. But she had withdrawn her funds, and then now is at a different district as a member, as PEPRA.
She should have came in as classic if we had that time that if it's really a true redeposit and she refunded it, and it was prior to 2013, then when you enrolled her, our system should have seen that prior time and put her in classic. So I would want to look at that.
Double check that. So even though she hadn't redeposited it because she had an original date back then,
with the same employer. The key is with the same employer.
Because it's all schools.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so she should have maintained that date, and that could possibly be. So I just need to check that. So if that's not the case, if she really is been a PEPRA member, then we can maybe address that.
Yeah, if you'd like, you can send the CID over to member election team at calpers.ca.gov, and we'll take a look at it.
Okay.
That'd probably be the safest bet.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a little addition to what she was talking about, and I wonder if this has to do with when it's out of class, that means I have a vacancy. And so I'm going to place that person in the vacancy position, which we in our county would call an interim. So the position is clearly vacant, and I can mark it as interim. In the case where she was maternity leave, there's no vacancy, there's no position to throw her into, so it's got to be some sort of additional pay that's paid on her current position. And so I guess that additional pay just needs to be reported the same way that her current position, or previous, was being reported, so that it's lumped together.
So that kind of is the distinction, but again, that's why I said it's kind of based on internal policies and procedures on what out of class actually is, but most of the time, that's what it is right there, like Kevin was explaining, whether it's additional pay in the same position or they're actually moved into another position and it's documented.
Okay, I have a question about the retirement system election. On the form at work, confirming that the member has at least 5 years of service or until recently the active appointment within 120 days. Is the 120 days for a school's employer, or is it for any public agency that has an appointment?
They had to have been active within 120 days with another school employer.
Okay,
Based
so
on
it
the
is
government
schools.
code, it outlines who they would have to be active with. The only time that the employment previous doesn't matter is when they have the 5 years. Then it
Okay.
doesn't matter who they had it with.
And CalPERS is checking that is 5 years or 120?
Yes, our system's set up to check for that.
Okay, thank you.
You mentioned that a retiree can come back and fill in a vacant position as long as they meet all the criteria.
Right.
And not exceed the 960 hours and do multiple positions. Does the 960 hours per position, it will be
All
entire-
positions
all
for the
positions?
fiscal year have to stay below 960.
And my other question is in the projected contribution invoicing. I guess the functionality was to be in effect in April, and is that still? I didn't see any changes in the layout of the CalPERS website.
So it's my understanding that the functionality for projections for schools has not yet been turned on. That's a financial office question. I'm not sure when that will be. Again, if you want to send an email to the employer technical support mailbox, we can escalate that over to FINO for a response. It's my understanding right now, currently, it's public agencies only.
Josh, you want to check the online and see if we have anything? And we're getting close to lunchtime here, so I know.
I know we had. There we go. All right, I know we have a few. All right, so for overtime positions, here's a scenario for an employee who's working 2 CalPERS covered positions. One is contributory, one is non-contributory. An employee quits their full-time position in one district or agency that is being reported to PERS, and she doesn't let her non-contributory employer know that she has quit that other job. CalPERS doesn't realize this until 3 or 4 years down the line. CalPERS finds out that no contributions have been reported for the last 3 or 4 years, and they realize the employee has had a non-contributory position for those years. Will CalPERS assess penalties or interest or fees for the non-contributory employer for those 3 or 4 years of contributions that are now due?
So the answer is yes, and I think that was at the end of Christina and Emily's presentation, someone brought up checking in with those folks who have other positions to find out if their pay rate changed or if they were still working there. That would be the best way to know. But yes, we would go back and require contributions for that period for the position. There wouldn't. There's no penalties and interest tied to that. No, no, just the contributions. Yeah, no.
Okay, and I believe that's probably going to be about all we're going to be able to get through. A lot of these have a lot of moving pieces, so we'll forward those to the appropriate areas later this afternoon.
Okay, let me kind of close this up here then. Just a reminder that all the meetings this quarter we're going to be, or this year we're going to be here at CalPERS in this room. The next meetings, Wednesday, August 8th, and Thursday, November 1st. We'll keep the format the same as we had today, with CalPERS in the morning and CalSTRS in the afternoon. For us here at CalPERS, the next board meeting is Monday, May 14th, right here in the auditorium, which is right down the hallway. And again, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules today. And lunch is going to be served in the same room we had the coffee and the snacks there. But feel free, you can take your lunches outside into the atrium area there, the outside cafe area there. So thank you very much again, and enjoy your lunch hour. Thank you.
Hi. Yeah.